The PFT Live hiatus has begun, which means PFT PM is back, at least for now. Some of you want it to be back more permanently than that. We don't always get what we want, but we do get PFT PM for most of the next 5 weeks while PFT Live is off. Some days I possibly won't do it. Most days I will. I don't want to write the open-ended check right now, but I do enjoy having the interaction. I enjoy answering the questions, and I enjoy creating video content that can be embedded into the various PFT stories that we'll be writing, because even though PFT Live takes a break for 5 weeks, ProFootballTalk.com never does. No days off. Now, with PFT Live, we say no days off unless we take a day off. With PFT, it truly is no days off. Every day, updates, whatever's happening in the NFL. And even if nothing's happening, we'll find something to write about. And today we find some things to talk about. I want to start with the DeAndre Hopkins situation. He visited the Titans and the Patriots last week, and at last word, he's going to take some time to make a decision. That implies there's nowhere else he's visiting, that it's Titans, Patriots. Now, he could sign with someone without visiting, but no further visits scheduled, which means potentially he's got a range that he's looking for that the Titans and the Patriots have satisfied roughly, and that other teams just aren't willing to do it. Interesting to see whether or not anyone else will come out of the woodwork in the coming days, especially since, and this is a point that I made in an item that we posted over the weekend, Bill Belichick's interest in DeAndre Hopkins, in theory, should get other teams interested in Hopkins. The idea that one of the great coaches of all time in any sport has interest in this player would, you think, be enough to get other teams to say, what are we missing here? If Bill Belichick wants him, maybe we should. And remember 3 years ago, late June, when they signed Cam Newton out of the blue in New England. I think one of the reasons they kept it quiet then, if people start thinking that Bill Belichick sees something in Cam Newton, maybe some other team will. I don't know whether the star has fallen since the Patriots haven't won a postseason game in the 4 years since winning Super Bowl 53. The personnel acumen maybe was never as great as he gets credit for. Maybe people just aren't smitten by the idea that Bill Belichick has interest in DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe it's easy enough to just say, well, it's because of Bill O'Brien, and the two of them have a history, and they need to make the offense better, and this is a way to do it. Regardless, I am surprised that the Patriots' open interest in Hopkins hasn't caused more teams to mobilize, to either kick tires, bring him in for a visit, seriously consider signing him, and, above all else, get him so the Patriots can't. I think the fact that there isn't a rush to keep the Patriots from getting Hopkins is kind of an implicit acknowledgement by the league at large that they're not worried about the Patriots anymore. They used to be obsessed with the Patriots. Now, you know what? If Belichick wants him, let him have him. From the Bills' perspective, hey, we'd rather Belichick have him than Andy Reid have him. Then we don't have to worry about the Chiefs being even better than they are. So we'll see. Number one, if it even happens. Posted an item on Monday morning with some quotes from Dante Scarnecchia to MassLive.com regarding the importance of a consensus and a compromise between Bill Belichick and DeAndre Hopkins on the way through the door about whether and to what extent he's going to practice. That's a key point. Belichick wants guys to practice every day. Hopkins has a reputation for not practicing all that often. As Scarnecchia points out, you need to have that worked out on the way in. It's not going to get any better between the two if there are surprises once it's time to go to training camp and DeAndre Hopkins wants a day off or needs a day off or claims that he can't practice when Bill Belichick is expecting his guys to practice, and he's going to reward the guys who practice with playing time. Now, sometimes you compromise your standards for great players. But again, if Bill Belichick is willing to compromise his standards for DeAndre Hopkins, the message to all the other teams is Belichick thinks this guy's still pretty damn good. Why aren't you pursuing him if Belichick thinks that? So it's a strange situation, and we'll see how it plays out. We'll be keeping an eye on that. That's one of the major items of unresolved business in the NFL over the coming days and weeks as we wait for the start of training camp. Another item that continues to linger, although the Bengals have done a pretty good job for most of the offseason in selling the nothing to see here routine. And we've established that the NFL's real motto should not be football is family. It should be nothing to see here. The Bengals have sold us all that there's nothing to see here on the future of Joe Mixon. They want the veteran running back on the team, but possibly on their own terms. Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic recently pushed the idea that it's just a matter of time before the Bengals approach Mixon with a request that he realign his contract to better fit the overall realities of the running back market. That's a delicate way of saying they plan to go to him and say, you either got to take less money than the 10 plus million you do to make this year, or you're going to be gone. That's the real message. You can package it however you want, realigning your contract. If you don't, what's going to happen? What's the or else? Hey, Joe, we'd like you to take less money. Well, I'd like to not take less money. Okay. End of conversation. No. The message is, anytime a player, a veteran player, is approached with an idea, a possibility, a win-win. You know how it's a win for a player? You still have your spot on the team. You still are making good money, just not the money you thought you were going to make. So for the Bengals, if they're going to do it, the question is timing. Because once you go to training camp, if he shows up at training camp with his $10+ million salary and would suffer as we, and I don't want to jinx him by saying this, but we know what happens once it's time to go to practice. Even though practices aren't as grueling as they used to be, there are still injuries. Injuries happen. Running backs get injured. Running backs get hit. They step a certain way. They cut a certain way. And injuries can occur to the lower extremities. So if that would happen to Joe Mixon before he would do a new deal, the Bengals would be on the hook for the full salary for this year if it was a season ender. So there's merit in trying to get this done before training camp. The other side of the coin, though, is the longer it lingers in camp and preseason and the closer we get to week one, what are the options for Joe Mixon at that point? Where is his or else? Where is there a team that would pay him more than whatever the Bengals would offer on a reduced salary? And that's the key. The $10 million goes away. What are the Bengals willing to pay less than that? And how does that compare to what someone else would do? And that's when it becomes imperative on the agent to entice teams to tamper. Even though it's a violation, everybody does it, and the agent's job is to gauge the market. So the agent knows what's behind door number two. You know what's behind door number one. It's whatever the Bengals would be willing to pay. You can't properly evaluate that offer unless you know what else is out there. And then for the Bengals, the question is, what else is out there for us? The depth chart isn't chock full of experience. Dalvin Cook is out there, but the question becomes, okay, if you offer, and I'm just throwing a number out, $8 million to Joe Mixon, and he says no. What does Dalvin Cook say yes to? And does it make sense to swap out Joe Mixon for Dalvin Cook? Is that what they're thinking about doing? Would Cook want to do it? Puts him in a position to potentially win a Super Bowl. Maybe he would. All comes down to money. And that's one of the realities with this running back position. We've written about it. We'll be talking about it, how young running backs get screwed by the rookie wage scale, and they put their best work in at a time when they're not making much money. Older running backs then get screwed by the market. Sorry, Joe, the market no longer supports the money we've committed to pay you this year. We'd like you to take less money. And remember, one of the keys to protect yourself against that, if you're a player, if you're an agent, and I don't know how strongly the teams push back on these things, but it's critical to have significant money that gets paid or guaranteed early in the league year. It forces the team to make a decision. Ideally, you want the full salary to become fully guaranteed at the start of the league year. Then the team has to either cut the guy while the money is flowing in free agency and the options are less limited, or keep him, one way or the other. Now, the Vikings with Dalvin Cook, they had to guarantee $2 million of his base salary this year because he was on the roster third day of the league year. I don't think they could have cut him if they wanted to then because of his shoulder. I don't think he would have passed a physical on the way out the door. So the $2 million was going to be guaranteed no matter what. But it's only $2 million. If he plays for someone this year, pretty good chance he's making the $2 million. You need something more than that. You need something that forces a real decision. It's harder to get in the out years of contracts. And my guess is teams fight back against that. They pay money up front with signing bonus and full guarantees, and they want the flexibility on the back end. And that flexibility includes the opportunity to let a situation linger all the way through March, April, May, June, July, August, and then go to the player just as the season is about to start and say, we need you to realign your contractual expectations for this year. Otherwise, you're not going to be on the team. And oh, by the way, everyone else has spent their budget. They've set their rosters. There's nowhere for you to go. So you better take this offer we're going to make for you to make a lot less than you were supposed to make to do the same damn thing that you were going to do for a lot more money. Something to keep an eye on as we continue through the quiet time and as training camp approaches. We've been thinking about, writing about, and talking about the NFL's gambling policy, a couple of items from over the weekend. And I'm getting good feedback from people in the league, privately, obviously, because it's a delicate issue for the NFL. But this thing, look, and here's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to cause trouble for the sake of causing trouble. I'm trying to cause trouble in the name of prompting change, because I believe there are too many flaws and defects in the league's gambling policy and in the procedures utilized for educating players and others. The mere fact that we've seen these suspensions, it tells you that something is missing when it comes to properly educating everyone involved. And we know about the players who've been disciplined. My understanding is there have been employees who have been quietly fired by the league office at a minimum for running afoul of the gambling policy. And I really do believe at the end of the day, there needs to be a greater commitment to making sure our people know what they can and can't do versus being able to say, hey, we've informed everyone of what the obligations are. It's up to them to figure out what these rules are and comply. No, this isn't a standard HR policy where all you have to do is get a piece of paper that someone signed acknowledging they've received the policy. This is one that requires sufficient and thorough education so there aren't these issues. I mean, from the standpoint of your players, you want your best players available to play. You don't want guys arbitrarily gone because they truly don't understand the nuances and the contours of the gambling policy. You want Jameson Williams, for example, to be available for the first 6 weeks of the season for the Detroit Lions. You want every great player to be available. And if you have these landmines out there that you haven't properly told the players where they are, all you can say is, well, they've signed the acknowledgement form that they've received the map, even though the map isn't all that clear as to where the landmines are. They've signed the paperwork. Don't blame us. It's not our fault. They need to be smarter. They need to properly understand this. Somebody needs to explain it to them, their agent, the union, whoever. Baloney. The league needs to explain it, and the teams need to explain it. And some teams are taking the NFL's convoluted map of where the mines are and rewriting it. Sean Payton basically admitted that a couple of weeks ago in discussing the gambling policy during a press conference with the Broncos, that they've distilled it into something understandable. Gets back to the point I've been making about what players are allowed to do. Well, you can gamble on other sports as long as you don't do it while you're at work, as long as you don't do it at the facility, as long as you don't do it while you're traveling. And if you do, you're looking at least a 6-game suspension. Again, why give the players that right to gamble when it is basically a ticket to the minefield? Just close the door to the minefield. Just say no entrance to the minefield. If you want to play in the NFL, stay out of the minefield. What are they going to say? Nah, we'd like to dance around in the minefield. We'd like to go gamble. We'd rather not play in the NFL. That's an easy way to solve a lot of this. But then comes the issue that as I sit, and I know I should probably get a better hobby because I sit around thinking about the gambling policy, but I'm concerned about the long-term best interest of the NFL. Let me just do an aside here, because this occurred to me today when we wrote the item about this loophole that seems to exist once coaches are in that purgatory after they're fired by one team before they're hired by another. The way the gambling policy is written, looks like coaches who were fired by a team can go bet on the NFL if they want to during that interim period where they're in John Gruden's Fired Football Coaches Association before they get another job. And what occurred to me while I was writing that, and look, people have pointed out the hypocrisy, and it's clear, it's rank, it's unavoidable. The NFL is in bed with the sports books, getting millions of dollars for sportsbook partnerships. You have owners who own significant chunks of these sportsbook companies that started as daily fantasy or whatever. Then once the floodgates opened for legalized gambling, DraftKings and FanDuel and the other major companies embraced it. So how do you ever truly effectively tell your workforce you can't sample the offerings of these companies that are giving us millions of dollars for sponsorship, and these companies that some of our owners have significant investments in? How do you ever have the right commitment? Because as the league, how hypocritical it is. You know how ridiculous it sounds. I use the Olive Garden example. Olive Garden becomes a major sponsor of the NFL, and there are owners who are significant shareholders in Olive Garden, but none of the players and none of the employees of the teams of the league can ever eat at an Olive Garden. Kind of makes it hard to do a full-throated Olive Garden is bad seminar when and everyone else knows that Olive Garden is good for the upper reaches of the National Football League. So the only way out of this, truly, is to just turn their back on gambling altogether. Go back to the way that it was when gambling was illegal and all the bookies and the mob and everyone else was making money off of gambling and the NFL wasn't. The NFL is going to do fine without having these sportsbook partnerships. They're going to do fine. The owners will do fine without owning percentages of the sportsbook companies. The best way to do this right is to have a clear firewall between the NFL and gambling, but it's too late for that. Too late for that. There's too much money that's already been made. Roger Goodell's got this obsession that the NFL is going to be whatever it is, 25 billion, 28 billion, 29 billion per year in revenue, so you don't turn down a revenue stream. So, what was my point? I had a good point, but now it's gone. But the broader point is this. We're trying to expose the flaws in the gambling policy in the hopes of rectifying them so the worst case scenario doesn't happen. So there isn't a Tim Donaghy scandal. So there isn't some new scandal with some new fact pattern that we're not aware of. So that the NFL doesn't have to contend with a federal agency that's created specifically to oversee the NFL and ensure that there's true integrity in the product. So we don't have to, although, hey, look, controversy sells. If there is some ambitious prosecutor out there that decides to take on the NFL over some flaw in the gambling policy that becomes a controversy and people are doing perp walks and having trials, that would be good for business, short term. Long term, it's not good for the NFL. It's not good for anybody. And that's why we keep harping on it. And NFL, if you're out there, if you're listening, and we know you are, you can either get mad at me and go complain about me to somebody because I'm criticizing you about your gambling policy, or you can take the criticism to heart and you can think of the best ways to improve and enhance your policy, the education, and everything that I've been pointing out and that others have been pointing out. I'm not the only voice in the darkness here, but the point is we're trying to make this better. We're trying to point out these flaws, and it's hard to do it because the NFL wants to circle the wagons around the money it's making from the sports books, while at the same time firing arrows out of that wagon circle at the players who dare to do the thing that the sportsbook companies want people to do. And I go back to Chris Sims' conspiracy theory from last week, and maybe he will join me in Howie Roseman's top 5 NFL conspiracy theorists, but the idea that the NFL wants players, not the NFL, yes, the sports books want players to gamble, so the NFL wants to let them gamble on other sports because players will lose more money than the average person because they have more money to lose. And we reported last week that someone in the league lost $8 million last year. So they are the whales. The sports books, the casinos, anyone who has gambling offerings is always looking for the whales, the ones who will lose big money and won't think twice about it, and they'll show up again and they'll lose more big money. And they've yet to figure out the lesson my father, the bookie, told me when I was very young. When it comes to gambling, you can't win. I remember going into a casino for the first time when I was 20 years old in Lake Tahoe. You look around, see how nice it is. It didn't take a whole lot of brain power, and trust me, at age 20, I didn't have very much of it. It didn't take a lot to look around and say, I know where this money came from to make this place so nice. All the suckers who were in here before me who thought they had a system, who thought they could win. At the end of the day, you can't win. Now I know there's a small percentage that somehow crack the code, that somehow have some system. And the House would probably like to glorify those folks to make other people think that they'll have a system, that they'll crack the code. They won't. At the end of the day, gambling has continued as an industry for decades and will continue as an industry for decades more to come, because over time you lose and they win. That needs to be part of the education that players get. Don't even do it. You shouldn't want to do it, because you will lose. You will lose your money and they will win it from you. Does the NFL really want the players to get that message? Do the sports books that are paying the NFL millions for these sponsorships really want the players to get that message, when the players are the ones that the sports books would like to prey upon? Again, the best solution, firewall. Too late for that, unfortunately. Maybe it will take a massive scandal to get some future commissioner to create the firewall that needs to be there between the NFL and gambling. We can only hope. Another area where the league, I think, is fearing a worst case scenario and doing a better job of planning for it, even though the NFL isn't saying so in these terms, the kickoff. Most dangerous play in football. Now, the NFL focuses on concussions, number of concussions, when projecting this urgency when it comes to making the kickoff safer. And the only really good idea over the past decade or so for making the kickoff safer is to just have fewer kickoff returns. It doesn't make the play safer. We just do it less frequently, which is what the latest rule change, the fair catch opportunity between the goal line and the 25, which will give the receiving team the ball at the 25. That's what it's aimed at accomplishing. Fewer kickoff returns, because once they move the kickoff point to the 35 and the touchback from the 20 to the 25, major incentive to, as the unintended consequence, kick the ball short and force the team to return it and then try to tackle them within the 25-yard line. Caused more kickoff returns, caused more concussions. Now they're trying to take that out. I still believe that the NFL's main concern here is not concussions as much as it is avoiding catastrophic neck injury. It's what happened to Kevin Everett, the Bills special teamer, who regained full use of his arms and his legs, and he was able to have a normal life. He didn't play football again, obviously, but that happened in 2007 or so. The Eric LeGrand injury at Rutgers, he was permanently paralyzed from the neck down on a kickoff return, because what happens is on the kickoff return, two players are running at each other at full speed, unrestrained, one-on-one, full speed, top speed, whatever their top speed is, and they collide. And as they collide, there's an instinct to just brace. This is how you brace for impact. You drop your head a little bit. And when you do that, you set the stage for the forces to congregate the back of the neck, C4, C5, C6. The forces could cause a fracture, impingement of the spinal cord, possibly serious injury, possibly something worse than that. And I think this is my Howie Roseman top 5 conspiracy theory. I think that the NFL realized after Damar Hamlin died on the field and was brought back to life, they realized, and they've known all along, and Carson Palmer said this in a roundtable discussion with Peter King 14 years ago during the Celebrity Pro-Am golf tournament at Lake Tahoe, that eventually a player is going to die on the field. And I remember we had just started our partnership with NBC, and that was like an off-the-charts traffic post. This idea that a current franchise quarterback in the NFL is convinced somebody's eventually going to die on the field. What would that do to the game from a PR standpoint? Would that be the moment that people feel that they no longer can morally enjoy pro football, given that someone died on the field? Now, high school players die either on the field or not long thereafter every year. There's a certain number where that happens. But for the NFL, if it would happen there, what would that do? And they had a glimpse of it. They got to experience that dread of, uh-oh, here it is. The day has arrived with Damar Hamlin. I feel like their reaction to that, because we know the NFL is very reactive, not proactive. The reaction to Damar Hamlin dying on the field and being revived was to say, this damn kickoff play is going to be the one that results in someone dying on the field. We can't have that happen. Number one, we don't want it to happen. We don't want someone to die. And number two, we don't want to suffer what the sport would suffer if it occurs. That's what I think created this urgency to find another way to seal off the unintended consequence. Oh, let's move the the touchback point to the 25. Well, we're going to kick off short then and create more kick returns. Oh, unintended consequence. Now we got to do something else. Let's make a fair catch available. And now there's going to be squib kicks. Unintended consequence is going to be something else until they just get rid of the kickoff altogether. And I feel like that's where this is heading. Where are the alternatives? There was an opportunity by what happened was, pardon my itch, there was a meeting in March, the annual meeting, where they brought up the issue of this fair catch adjustment. They tabled it until May, and they had a meeting of special teams coaches in New Jersey with the league to try to come up with some alternatives to further tweaking the rules simply to reduce the number of kick returns. What can we do at a more fundamental level to make this play safer? The league's perspective, I'm told, is there were no good ideas presented. Is there any good idea? What can really be done to make the kickoff safer? What can you really do to the play to eliminate the reality that at some point, as team A gets the ball and team B is trying to get to the ball, that you're not going to have players running at full speed and potentially colliding? Now, the XFL's kickoff, where it almost looks like an electric football game because they're all kind of in position and they're frozen there as the ball's kicked. You have to be creative about it. Come up with ideas. Even if you have to steal someone else's idea, they can't sue you for it. They don't own a patent on their kickoff play. What's wrong with stealing it? The NFL has stolen other ideas. The NFL took the 2-point conversion from college in 1994. There's been other things the NFL's done that they've seen work elsewhere. But if the goal is to minimize the occasions where guys are running full speed at each other and they collide just as their necks dip and you've got maximum force on C4, C5, C6, there's got to be a way to make that more of a broken field run, not an open field run for everyone, not just the guy with the ball, but for everyone, where you don't get to full speed and collide in a violent way that results in forces being applied to that spinal cord in a manner that could result in serious injury or death. I think that's all I had to talk about for today, but there are some questions, and I promise to answer those questions. I've relocated. For those of you who remember this from last year, I used to be down in my wine cellar with the fake Florida rock that so many of you enjoy. We have overhauled the technical capacities of my internet system, and I've got actually a router in my office now, so I can do this from my office, and it allows me to multitask a lot more easily than previously. So I'm able to just look over here to the questions that we've gotten in response to our call for them on Twitter. And let's see what PFT PM Posse, which is always at the top of the stack because I follow that account. PFT PM Posse asks, will we see teams not caring about tampering with coaches if it only involves trading draft spots like Philly and Arizona? I think that will make people more concerned about tampering because teams regard their unused draft picks as the most important capital that they have. It's cheap, and it potentially puts them in position, if they choose wisely and develop properly, they can get a Hall of Fame player. So they don't want to lose draft picks. They don't want their pick in round 3 to be a lot lower than it was supposed to be. I think this could be the thing that maybe gets teams scared straight. Now, the problem is, and we saw it when Jim Irsay believed, based upon some articles from ESPN.com, that the Commanders had called Andrew Luck or reached out to him through an intermediary or whatever to see if he was interested in playing for the team in 2022. Irsay shouts via Twitter that any contact with Andrew Luck would be a blatant violation of the tampering rules. I think this weird precedent the NFL created with the Jonathan Gannon tampering situation, the NFL has quickly said, no, this isn't what we're going to do on a regular basis. We're not going to deal with these tampering violations in a way where the two sides work it out, where there's some sort of swap made of draft picks. I think the NFL just doesn't want this to be an issue on a regular basis. Tampering happens every once in a while, every 5 or 6 years. The NFL has some other agenda for making an example of someone who tampers. Remember, the last big tampering penalty was the Chiefs for talking directly to Jeremy Maclin during the 48 hours when they were allowed to talk to his agent, but they weren't supposed to talk to him. They talked to him, and they whacked the Chiefs. They took away a 3rd-round pick, I believe. And I was told at the time the reason that the league did that is there were a lot of young coaches that they wanted to basically scare into not violating the tampering rules so blatantly. The tampering rules will continue to get violated blatantly. And I still believe, and this is what got Howie Roseman to put me among the top 5 NFL conspiracy theorists, pressing him on exactly what happened with Jonathan Gannon, because I believe that something big happened. I believe that, and this is just a hypothesis, it doesn't even count as a conspiracy theory, and it's just a way to try to understand why this came to be. Because I don't buy the idea that the Cardinals had some sort of moment of clarity where they decided, you know what, we called Jonathan Gannon when we shouldn't have. We probably should turn ourselves in, even though no one will ever find out and no one will ever know. And people do this all the time. We probably should tell the league and the Eagles that we called Jonathan Gannon when we shouldn't have. We kind of feel bad about it. We're dead. Bullcrap. I think the Eagles became aware of it. Now, how did they find out about it? Well, if the Eagles were in the process of trying to figure out what happened to cause them to blow a 10-point lead in the second half of the Super Bowl, and they looked under every stone possible, did they look at Jonathan Gannon's email account? Did they look at his phone that they issued to him? Did they look at his computer that was issued to him? Did they come to the conclusion that in the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, this guy was spending some time putting his plan together for his interview with the Cardinals that was happening the day after the Super Bowl? Pretty big 2 days in Jonathan Gannon's life. Pretty significant and impactful 2-day period. And frankly, the second day, the interview with the Cardinals, to him, more important than the day before. And if there was any evidence that the Eagles found that suggested that second day took precedence over the first day, and that his preparation of the Eagles defense was undermined or diluted in any way because of that, it's a reason to get upset. So the Eagles say something to the league. The league realizes, you know what, once they see the evidence from the Eagles, we can't ignore this one, because if we do, then the Eagles will leak that to someone else, and the world will find out what a big deal it was. So we better do something. Let's work something out here, because we don't want this getting out. This one's big. We don't want it getting out. So let's work this deal out. Let's announce it 5 minutes before the draft starts, so maybe no one will be paying attention. And let's just keep our mouths shut and our heads low. And if anyone asks any tough questions, let's engage in an ad hominem attack where we accuse them of being conspiracy theorists, and no one will ever know how bad it really was, because it was probably pretty bad. I think it was pretty bad. And I hope one of these days we find out the truth. Maybe there'll be a deathbed confession from Howie Roseman or Michael Bidwell or Monty Austin-Fort or Jeffrey Lurie or someone. Maybe someone eventually will tell us what really did happen, because I have a feeling it was pretty bad. Joshua, a.k.a. at Josh Dimes. With all the discrepancies you've recently been reporting on with the NFL's gambling policy, why don't you think the Lions or the NFLPA aren't appealing Jameson Williams' 6-game suspension, especially if it's true the bet was placed at a hotel during an away game? Well, if that is true, and I've seen that reported by someone, I can't remember who, that would fall within the confines of a violation of the gambling policy, because under the policy, if you're traveling with the team, if you're at the team hotel, you can't wager on any sports whatsoever. If you're home, you can. If you're at work, you can't. For players. For non-players, you can't bet on anything at any time as it relates to sporting events. Players can do it at home. They can't do it when they're at work. But there's a deeper issue here. Because the question is, why didn't the Lions or the union appeal? Well, first of all, the Lions have no standing to appeal. The Lions have no direct dog in that hunt. They have to stand back and let it all play out, just as if it were a PED suspension, personal conduct policy suspension, or a substance abuse policy suspension. The team never has the right to appeal. It's always the player with the assistance of the union. The NFLPA would appeal if Jameson Williams appealed, but I've heard, and I haven't written this yet, and I need to. It's a good reminder. Hopefully I'll remember this reminder and write something about it. I've heard that what happens is, and this doesn't surprise me, the league basically approaches the player and says, we have evidence you violated the gambling policy, accept a 6-game suspension. And if we have to take this to a formal process, there's a chance it's going to be a longer suspension. There's a chance it's going to be a full year. So you should take the 6-game suspension. So And I'm not saying this specifically happened with Jamison Williams, but I've heard this has happened with others who wagered on sports other than football when they shouldn't have. The idea is you have an ultimatum. You take the 6-game suspension quietly, and if you fight, we're going to reserve the right to try to make it a more significant suspension. So they get a plea bargain out of the player. So there's never an appeal. The player agrees to the 6-game suspension, never gets the evidence, never gets the proof, never has the NFL lay out the case. Now, presumably the player knows I did something I shouldn't have done, but we never really find out how deep that rabbit hole goes. And there's never an opportunity to raise what I think would be a very important defense. You failed to properly educate me on the minefield, on how to get through the minefield. Oh, yes, you've harvested my signature on this document, but you never actually told me. And your policy doesn't make it as clear as it needs to be. You'd never get to that point if the player just accepts the 6-game suspension for fear of having a more significant suspension if he fights. Now, we've kind of come to this loose understanding that if you bet on pro football, NFL football, you get suspended at least a year. If you bet on some other sport while at work, you get 6 games. That's kind of what's played out. But the problem is the policy is written so broadly, and it flows from the commissioner's power to preserve the integrity of the game. And it's all unilateral. It's not negotiated with the union. This gambling policy was created simply by the NFL. The union just steps back and takes it. Now, the player has rights, but what are the rights? And if you're some player in the future who decides to fight it because you gambled on something at work other than NFL football, and you want to say, hey, the precedent is 6 games, policy is broad enough that the commissioner can say, well, your case is different because of this, full season. You fought it full season. So the leverage that comes from that threat that maybe will sit you out for the full year, that's what's getting guys like Jamison Williams. And again, I don't know specifically that he agreed to this, but I think usually what happens is when they announce it, it's done, it's over. There's either an agreement or the process is fully concluded itself. I think with these guys that were all announced in April, they all took their medicine in lieu of going through a full fight because we never heard anything about appeals or about hearings, about evidence being produced. They just caved. They caved in the face of the threats that the NFL made that if you don't take the deal that we're going to put on the table, it's only going to be worse. Matt Bostic, Nick Bosa likely to have a new deal with the 49ers in the offseason and likely to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. Do you think Justin Jefferson and other skill positions will use it as a baseline for future deals? I think that the reality is it's position by position. That Justin Jefferson's goal will be, and he should be, the highest paid receiver in the NFL, not the highest paid non-quarterback. It just so happens that pass rusher is the most important position other than quarterback. So the highest paid pass rusher is most likely to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And when you look at where that market is, it's pretty close right now. And I know Tyreek Hill is technically at the top with $30 million, but there's a bullcrap final year that drives that number up above 27 million or so. I think 27, 28 is still the sweet spot, I think, for both positions. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's kind of what it is for pass rusher and receiver. Upper 20s, close to 30 as well. I feel, Aaron Donald's north of 30 as interior defensive lineman, but he's a unicorn. Doesn't matter what position he is. He's one of the great players of all time. He's north of 30. I think for Bosa, Aaron Donald should be the target. And for Justin Jefferson, I think Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill should be the target, and maybe just try to get to 30. And again, this is why we always largely ignore the initial reports that are leaked by the agents to the people who are trying to get it all out there 5 minutes before the announcement, because it's always favorable to the player. The truth comes out within sometimes 24, sometimes 48 hours later, and we always break it down at PFT and say, here's what it really is. So yeah, they'll say it's 27, but it's really 24. Or they'll say it's 30, it's really 27. So we'll see. But Jefferson has earned his deal. Bosa is overdue for his deal. I expect both to get contracts before the season begins, maybe before training camp begins, and get the financial reward that they have richly earned. Let's see what else we have here. Ryan Nizet, will Saudi Arabia or Saudi affiliates eventually try to purchase an NFL team? I don't know that they will. What I wrote in the aftermath of this PGA Live Golf merger that may or may not be derailed by the federal government because they're looking at antitrust implications and other potential irregularities If the Saudi Public Investment Fund decides they want in on the NFL, there's a dollar value that will get the NFL to play along. There's an amount that will get the league to change its rule. Rules are made to be changed or disregarded on a case-by-case basis. If the Public Investment Fund is going to pay some ungodly amount of money for a team and also pay some sort of a fee, they'll come up with a fancy name for it, a waiver fee. That's not that fancy, but it sounds good, a waiver fee. We're going to pay you $500 million per team to look the other way on this rule, to waive, to make a one-time special exception to your rule against foreign investment in teams. We'll pay every team $500 million, and then we'll buy this team for $13 billion. Now, you're getting to a $30 billion investment, but if you want in, and they got the money, if they really want in, they'll be able to do it. So that's the point that I made in the aftermath of the Gulf merger. If the Saudi Public Investment Fund wants to do it, they will find a way to get it done because everyone has their price. And there will be a certain amount of money that will get a guy like Jay Monahan to completely undercut everything he said about Live Golf. There's a certain amount of money that will get you to make a business decision that goes completely against any and all principles you may have previously articulated. Matt in St. Pete, does the NFL's gambling policy apply to daily fantasy sites regardless of the dollar value? DraftKings and FanDuel each have free week contests that require zero money. There's something floating around in the gambling policy. I don't have it in front of me. There's a $250 limit for fantasy prizes year long. I think daily fantasy is prohibited. But look, the easier rule for players would be just don't do any of it. No free contests, no paid contests, no daily fantasy, no full season fantasy, nothing. Complete and total clarity. Don't enter the minefield. That's so much easier than, I think I can do this. I'm not sure if I can do that. You know what? I'm just going to assume I can do it because how the NFL is making all this money off of sports books, I'll be fine. It's far better for all players and for the league if the rule is stay away. But to go back to the Chris Sims conspiracy theory, sports books don't want them to stay away because they're a nice source of some significant revenue. Luca Gomez, you often say that in Buffalo, if they don't get over the hump soon, either the front office or the coaching staff will get replaced due to either lack of talent or utilization of it. Which do you think gets dumped first in this event, the front office or the coaching staff? Well, Sims and I will debate this from time to time. He's a firm believer that the talent isn't where it needs to be in Buffalo, so that would point to the front office. Now, when you look at the issues that Stephon Diggs is unhappy about, that would point to coaching. And one of the problems of having a defensive head coach is you have Brian Daboll there getting the most out of Josh Allen as offensive coordinator, and he does so well, he becomes a head coach. You got to find another offensive coordinator. And at a minimum, there's an adjustment period for a guy like Ken Dorsey. Last year wasn't great. Apparently, Diggs was unhappy about the offense. So is it enough to just say, we've got this great franchise quarterback in Josh Allen, we need an offensive head coach? I don't know. Is it enough to say, you know what, coaching is fine, we need a better GM to get better talent around Josh Allen, to make better decisions about how we're going to build this roster? I don't know, but I do know this. As the pressure mounts on the Bills, and this Diggs situation, I think, increases the pressure, it's critical that Brandon Beane, the GM, and Sean McDermott, the head coach, be on the same page and not try to blame each other. It's tough to do. Easy to say, tough to do, because they're both feeling the pressure. So if they're concerned that they're going to be out if things don't work out this year, the human reaction to that is, it's not my fault, it's his fault. So you get in a situation where Beane would blame McDermott, McDermott would blame Beane, and it just becomes toxic. They need to be joined at the hip. It needs to be the old three-legged race. I think I used that metaphor in Playmakers, that the GM and the coach need to be fully aligned, and they need to think, we either both stay or we both go. And look, if this year ends up being a disaster for the Bills, let's say they don't make the playoffs, and that's not as crazy as it sounds, because the Dolphins are better. The schedule for that division is difficult, very difficult. They play 8 of their games against the AFC West teams and the NFC East teams. They play 6 games against the other teams in the division. That's 14 games right there. It's entirely possible only one team's getting out of that division. and getting a spot in the postseason, which would obviously be the winner of the division. If only one team gets out and the Dolphins win that division and the Bills don't make the playoffs, I think it's reset button time. And I know that coaching staff gets a little antsy when I say or write those things. Front office gets a little antsy when I say or write those things. But that's the way this industry that you've chosen operates. Every year, there will be a certain number of coaches and general managers who are deemed by the owners of those teams to not be fit to continue in those jobs. We're not rooting for it. We're not carelessly suggesting it. We're just acknowledging the reality that when we get to the Monday after week 18, if not sooner, changes are going to be made. Where are the hot spots? Where are the places where we think a change could be made? Well, in Buffalo, where they've chronically failed to live up to high expectations and they've failed to get the most out of the team around Josh Allen. And when you throw in this Stephon Diggs situation, it makes it a spot that you at least keep an eye on. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I just said, oh, everything's fine, everything's great. They get to the playoffs every year. Oh, they went 20 years without getting to the playoffs. They're getting to the playoffs every year. They should be happy. And maybe they are. Maybe just good enough is just good enough, like it seems to be in Minnesota at times. I don't know. But the reality is, for the teams that are determined, when we got this franchise quarterback and we've got to at least get to a Super Bowl with him, if not win a Super Bowl with him, it creates a sense of urgency, like it did in Denver when John Fox took the Broncos to the Super Bowl 2013. 2014, hosted the Colts in the divisional round. The Broncos lost, and Fox was out. And Gary Kubiak was in, and they won the Super Bowl the next year. So that's the precedent that's out there that these owners are considering. And the Bills are in a unique posture where they've got one of the best quarterbacks in football. They haven't been to the Super Bowl with him, while Joe Burrow has been there once, and Patrick Mahomes has been there 3 times. Burn unit. Some, such as Chris Sims, hate the hip drop tackle. What should be the proper technique to tackle from behind while stopping the ball carrier's momentum? Look, that's not for me to figure out. I don't know. I do know this, though. They haven't changed it. They haven't taken that out because they don't have an alternative. If they had an alternative, that would be the way to tackle a guy from behind, not this hip drop mechanism that is dangerous, that causes injuries to the lower extremities, but that has not been removed from the game yet by the NFL. And this is the challenge. We've seen an evolution of the game over the past 30, 40 years where it's gotten safer, it's gotten safer, it's gotten safer. And the challenge is to stop short of making changes that would be so dramatic that it would fundamentally alter the nature of the game. And this is one that until they have an alternative, it can't go anywhere. And look, I know the NFL has made rule changes in recent years, listening to players who said, hey, you shouldn't care only about our brains. You should care about our ACLs and our ankles and our legs too. And the NFL has made changes aimed at making the game safer from the neck down. The NFL's primary concern is the neck up. That's where the serious injuries could happen with, look at what concussions did back in the early days of the concussion crisis, where kids were being less involved in youth football. And if you would have a serious neck injury and or death due to a kickoff return, the supply of future football players could dry up dramatically. But my point is this, to answer the question, if there was an alternative, that would be the rule. For now, they don't have an alternative, so the hip drop remains. I probably should wrap this up. It's been 50 minutes so far. I never expect to do, I say this all the time. For those of you who have been around this facility over the course of the last several years, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you know that I inevitably say, boy, this is going on longer than I thought it was going to. I'm looking to see what else we have here. It's something we haven't gotten to yet. Here's one. What can be done to make the rookie wage scale fair to running backs, perhaps early player options? I mean, one idea I've heard and I've seen is 3 years to free agency. No franchise tag. 3 years, and then you hit the market. Now, that would require an alteration of the collective bargaining agreement specific to the running back position. And that's why there's value in this idea of creating a separate bargaining unit within the union for running backs, where they have their own voice, because there is conflict among the various positions. And the running backs have gotten screwed by the current rookie wage process because they put in their best years early in their careers when they're not making much money, and then they get to free agency. The franchise tag holds the best of the best running backs in place at a lower number than what they should get for the franchise tag, and they're just stuck, like Saquon Barkley and like Josh Jacobs this year. So it's a situation that requires a fundamental look at what we can do to be more fair to the running backs. And to get to that point, before it can even happen, the union has to want to do something about it, and the league has to want to do something about it. And I think the easiest solution is what Chris Sims suggested several months ago on PFT Live: some sort of a league-wide fund that rewards the players as they go for being the guys who generate all those yards, score those touchdowns, become the fantasy football darlings. Let's supplement their salaries early in their careers when they're making the league minimum. Let's pay them then. Let's give them a reward then, not from anything that touches the salary cap, just a league-wide incentive pool, because it's good for everyone. It's good for the game to have great players and great performances. So let's pay those guys then. Let's not force them to wait and wait and wait. And then when they finally are in position to get paid, nobody wants them anymore because they've got an accumulation of injuries and they're older, and there's some younger, cheaper guy that they can just lather, rinse, repeat, and make him the star player and then not pay him when he's in position to finally get paid. What else do we have? Neil watches PFT, wants to know if PFT PM will be making a return in any regular capacity other than the hiatus. Probably not, except for when there are significant developments that will require me to do a PFT PM after we go off the air. And there haven't been many of those lately. This really has been a slow and quiet year. I look back over past years, there's always some story that becomes the gift that keeps on giving. We had Deshaun Watson for 2 years. We've had Tom Brady's comings and goings, Aaron Rodgers, Deflategate, Bountygate, this scandal, that scandal, CBA negotiations. There's always been something that compels regular monitoring of what's happening in the NFL. It's really not there this year. So there haven't been a lot of reasons to have special editions of PFTPM, but that's how it's going to go forward. Anytime after 9 a.m. Eastern, when PFT Live goes off the air, if something big happens, we'll do an episode of PFTPM. And from time to time, it's a vehicle for doing interviews. If the interviews land in a window that doesn't mesh with the live show, we'll do a PFTPM interview. All right. Some of these questions I've already addressed one way or the other. Sean Ardell, why are you on in the AM with PM in the title? Well, by the time you get this and by the time I finish, it will be PM. The idea is it's the vestige of when it was an afternoon show. So PFT PM, even if it tapes in the morning, it shows up in the afternoon. Here's an interesting one. And hey, I'm never going to turn down an opportunity to sell a couple of copies of Father of Mine, which for some reason has spiked in sales. I'd like to think that it's maybe positive word of mouth and people are reading it and they're enjoying it and they're telling a friend about it and more people are buying it, but I have no idea how that happens or why it happens, but I'm appreciative that people are discovering it, they're buying it, they're reading it. And really, I am so used to getting negative feedback on everything I do that I expected a bunch of negative feedback about Father of Mine, my mob novel set back in 1973, inspired by the true events of the crew that my dad was associated with. Although he was just a bookie, he wasn't one of the soldiers. He wasn't, a button man or anything like that. But the feedback I've gotten on that has been overwhelmingly, if not universally positive. And I know by saying that, I'm opening myself up now to getting some emails telling me how much it sucks. But the reviews dating back to the Kirkus review that came out in early April was positive. The reader reviews have been, for the most part, extremely positive. The emails I get are universally positive. And, I like writing fiction and longer form, 100,000 words, 70,000 word books, because I've developed this routine where every day, I'm writing. And what I write today by tomorrow doesn't mean anything. What I write tomorrow by the next day doesn't mean anything. It's just gone. There's no longevity to it. There's not even a 24-hour shelf life. Like rarely, if ever, is there something I write that ends up resonating for a week. Never happens, rarely happens. So with Playmakers, that was something that maybe will have some relevance for a year or two, better than a day or two. But with fiction, that's something that can live forever. That's something that somebody can discover 50 years from now. I like that. I'm reading a book now that the author is deceased and his words live on. I like that. I like having something that becomes part of your legacy. And my goal is, and so the question again, has Father of Mine exceeded your expectations? I really didn't have any expectations because I just decided I'm going to put it out there and we're going to sell as many as we can. And I'm surprised, especially recently, with the number that have sold. It is cheap. It's hard to sell something like this to a football crowd because it's not a football book, and people just don't read like they used to. What I'm trying to do is help people have an experience that I thoroughly enjoy. I love having a good book that I'm reading. I love having that thing that I know I'm going to carve out 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there to come back to this story, this creation in your mind of a world to go along with the words, because your imagination becomes activated by this story you're being told. You give into the suspension of disbelief and actually tell yourself this is something that really happened. These are real people. And it's just fun. Now, if it's not a good book, it's not fun. So my goal is to write things that actually will be regarded by most people as good and something that's engaging and something that whisks you away from your day-to-day life. I mean, that's kind of the mechanism that we've provided on ProFootballTalk.com, PFT Live here on PFT PM. People appreciate a break from the monotony, the adversity, whatever it is of day-to-day life, especially in recent years. And we're happy to give that with Father of Mine and with the 7 others that are coming. In some form or fashion, they're coming. And I got some stuff happening behind the scenes that it's not worth talking about it now, but there's some stuff that's going to be happening, I believe. And there's others like Father of Mine that are going to come to fruition. They're going to be available at least one a year, maybe more often than that. But this is something that I've embraced as kind of a late career hobby that, hell, I don't know. I want to write 20, 25, 30 of these. The idea is eventually one of them will be pretty good. And then if one of them ends up being pretty good, just by accident, maybe people discover the other ones and they're out there. They're there forever. Once it's out there, once it's done, it's there for whoever wants it. So sorry about babbling on about that, but it's something I've enjoyed doing. And it's a different way to connect with folks out there. And if you haven't read Father of Mine yet, it's $4.99 for the ebook at Amazon, $13.97 for the printed copy. Those have been selling in significant amounts in recent days and weeks. And again, what's $13.97? I mean, come on, what do you do? You drop that on your breakfast at Starbucks between the egg and whatever sandwich and the coffee and whatever else you end up getting on the way out the door, newspaper. $13.97 is nothing. You get a good book that you enjoy. It carries you away to a different world. If you do it just right, it lasts for, some people have been reading this thing in one sitting, and that's great. I love when I hear that, but I prefer having a book that will be around for a couple of weeks. And I know I've got that little refuge, that little oasis in your day-to-day life that you can go to at the end of the day. You can go to for a break on your lunch hour, whatever the case may be. So that's what we're trying to do. And I appreciate those of you who have bought it, who have read it, and who have expressed appreciation via email, Florio@ProFootballTalk.com. If you want to tell me you like it, if you want to tell me you don't, whatever you want to do, you can reach me there at any time. That's it for today. A full hour. Wow. We're out of the gates during the PFT Live hiatus with a bang. Likely back tomorrow with another edition of PFT PM. Until then, check us out around the clock at ProFootballTalk.com. Thanks as always for some of your time, and we'll see you real soon. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.